October 10th meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
Liberty and justice for all.
Okay, approval of minutes for September 26th. Recommend the approve and review.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. 730 Mass Ave. Are they here? For generator?
Nope, he said he couldn't make it.
You couldn't make it. Okay, then let's,
Move to continue.
So moved. Second.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. Next one is 730 Mass Ave, Columbia Gas. This is the generator.
So this is to connect the house to gas. There has been some discussion about the generator, that it was the previous filing that you just continued. This is not just to hook up the generator, so I've informed the applicant that there was some concern that the location of the generator would remain fixed based on the location of the gas connection, so, but I'm sure he's prepared to discuss that. I let him know. So, Dana, if you want to.
Good evening. My name is Dana Altabello. I'm with Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors. I'm here representing Columbia Gas of Massachusetts. Excuse me. This RDA is for the proposed gas service connection for the existing dwelling at 730 Massachusetts Avenue. In total, approximately 107 linear feet of gas service pipe will be installed. All work will be done within the existing paved roadway or its shoulder, or within existing maintained lawn areas kind of on the right there of the yard. Portions of this work, as you can see, will take place within 100 feet of bordering vegetated wetlands. These wetlands were flagged by Brad Holmes of Environmental Consulting and Restoration in July of 2018. The gas main installation will be done as usual using the open trench method. This involves the contractor only opening the length of trench that can be installed and backfilled in one day, which I would imagine that would be most of this gas line in this instance. No stockpiles or open trench will be left open overnight. The erosion controls will be installed as shown in the plan prior to construction. No work will be done during any rain events. There's no catch basins, really. They're up gradient, but if necessary, there will be filter fabric installed or silt sacks below the catch basin grates. Since the work will be done during dry weather within paved roadways or along maintained grass areas, with erosion controls installed at the limit of work prior to construction and trenches backfilled at the end of each workday, there should be no impacts to the wetland resource areas. As Jennifer had mentioned, that this is really to connect the house itself for gas, for to provide a gas service connection for the house. I was unaware of any generator. That's kind of a separate issue. They have chosen this path. I know there is kind of in the center of the yard, there's the sewer connection and the water connection, so I think they're just trying to maintain some separation there. So it was safe coming in on the right-hand side. I believe that was the reason. But I think that's generally it. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
It's a separate application, but I don't think it's a separate issue. I just want to be clear on that, only because we've been wrestling with it for a while. The generator issue is that we would not allow the generator to be where it is if it were not for an extraordinary circumstance. Sure. Only a very small part of which is, how do you get gas to it? So it seems to me that if there was a different alternative, not necessarily a better alternative to bring gas in, would his generator actually stay where it is? And I think that those two conversations have to happen together. And but that being said, your proposal is to simply bring a gas service in within an area. We're going to cut and cover all of, probably one day, and make that connection. So what am I looking at? The orange hash mark is the gas line coming in? Or
That's
is it the red?
erosion controls.
That's erosion control. Is it the red line coming in?
It is, that's correct.
Okay.
What's in that corner of the house? Because we've been told the electrical service and the other utilities are on the back side of the garage. So what's on the front side of the house that would have you connecting there?
I think it was more to avoid the driveway, digging that up, and then there's as I mentioned, there's the sewer connection is closer to the driveway, and then I believe coming over is the water or vice versa. They're kind of spread out, so I think it was safe to come in there. It's kind of the worst-case scenario as far as the wetlands. If they do end up finding a better spot or a further spot away, it would be further away. They wouldn't be coming closer and asking for a minor modification or anything like that. So it's more of a worst-case scenario, and then once they get out there, if they can move it in, they can certainly do that.
I guess I'm good with this particular application. That's going back to your statement of how they're separate. I'm not convinced that compels me to allow the generator to stay where it is, as we consider that else, on another filing.
Right.
Just as though you you do your gas fitting to get your supply pipe to your various appliances inside the building. Similarly, he might need to plumb it to where his generator ought to be in compliance with our filing, with our requirements. So just because this is where the gas company says they want to be, and just because they can construct it in accordance with our regulations and our requirements under whatever action we might take, I don't think that justifies his generator location. And now I'm set.
Twofold. It usually if it smells like a rat, there's one. But I understand that you are moving forward with the gas supply to the house, which is fine. We try to explain. The administrator has mailed them several times to explain to them that to put the generator where it is now, they need a waiver.
Sure.
And they can't have a waiver without an alternatives analysis, of which they haven't supplied one.
Okay.
Okay? So, like my fellow commissioner has just explained, the generator won't stay there. So I hope in your supply, it's not affecting you as supplying the gas to the house. I understand he wants, now he wants to put gas in the house, I understand that. But I hope it's not driven by you to plumb in the generator, because where it is now is not gonna happen.
No, this is completely separate. This is,
Well, you're a civil engineer representing Columbia. You're not
yeah.
part of the marketing
Right.
group.
Exactly. I
You
didn't
have no
realize.
idea what conversations took place between the homeowner and the marketing group at Columbia Gas.
that's correct.
And that's fair to say.
Yeah.
Okay,
You're coming in with a direction from your client to bring a gas service in and to meet the requirements of the Wetlands Protection Act and our bylaw. And that's what you're doing. I just want to be clear in the record, I hope shows, that just because we give that permission, and I think we might, that doesn't have anything to do with the generator. In fact, if
Sure.
anything, it might prove that he has to absolutely move the generator.
it's a separate filing.
Yeah.
Okay, Al?
So, when it comes to tagging a location for a service, I'm not in the gas installation business, but I was in the electrical installation business. And whenever we wanted to install or bring a service into a building, the location had to be tagged by whoever the carrier was at the time. In this case, it's National Grid. It used to be Mass Electric. Call it whatever you want. And the tagging of the location was always done with the eye for the easiest installation for the utility provider. But when there were, and when there are wetland concerns, even the utility provider has to provide if there's a feasible alternative, they have to take it as to, what corner of the house to bring the service in.
Sure.
That's a frequent conversation that takes place, whether it's an above-ground service or an underground service, but specifically if it were underground, I suspect we'd be having the same conversation. Why couldn't the tag be at the other end of the house? And I guess that's an answer that only you could give us. If that's the only location for whatever number of reasons you described, then that's it, that's the location. But is there an alternative? Could that installation go to the left? I don't know, I'm asking.
Sure.
I'm not even considering the location of the generator. I do consider that to be a separate filing and a separate conversation. And having installed generators, they can go pretty much anywhere,
Yep.
because you can run from the generator to the service. You like to keep them close,
Right.
because length of run is always paramount. So if that becomes a consideration for the generator installer, if they say, no, we have to keep it close, plumbing it too far away from the service entrance would cause a hazard, which I doubt, but I'm just putting it out there, then it would make the service entrance that much more important. So I don't know if you know, or if you could find out if there is an alternative that could take it further away from the resource area.
I think these were the photos that were provided, so there was the existing driveway where
Yep.
they didn't want to go, just for the sake of, I'm assuming, not tearing up the pavement,
That's correct.
and then you're saying next in this open grass area would be the water line and the sewer line connecting to the house?
That's correct.
Sort of heading towards the location of the gas line.
I think it goes back to exactly what you said. It's, they picked the easiest route, and I think the easiest route is, there's nothing going on that right side of the house. So if there's a driveway, there's a
So
water and a sewer. And I
yeah,
think
you
they
dig,
just-
you dig safe is good, and instead of digging driveway, you're digging turf.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
instead of making it tight and challenging, they've kept an open line, I think, to the house.
Yeah. I guess I'm not sure if the location, because I do see a pedestal right at the side of the driveway in the photo. I don't know if is that electric service and communications in that pedestal?
Yeah, I would think so. I didn't get a good look. I stopped by the site tonight. I didn't really notice. I wasn't looking at that per se.
It looks like there's a manhole out in the street too, which is probably the sewer.
Well, the pedestal would indicate underground utilities.
Right, but out in the street too, and as he was just saying, if the sewer connection is there, there's a manhole there as well out in the street.
Yeah. Well, so I guess I'm looking for an opinion. Is it your opinion, and is it the consensus that there's no alternative?
Well, we're just going based on what has been provided to us. I mean, I guess the only
But I
other
think that's
piece of information would be that they provide us with the location of those other utilities on this plan, and then if that's the case, then I don't see any
I
reason
just-
to deny the location.
Okay, but I think that if we're having this conversation, because there's a second parallel filing for a generator, then I think there should be some type of an alternative.
Yeah, I think, I wouldn't say it's an alternatives analysis, I think it's just sort of bearing out for us, and that's why I kind of scrolled through your plans and pictures, trying to look to see if you had provided that information. But I guess just because we're having this other difficulty would,
Well, it's not just that anyway. I mean, believe me when I tell you, if they were taking and bringing an underground service in for any reason, the utility provider is the first one to go out and tag it, and there is a test.
right?
And believe me when I tell you, there were a lot of underground utilities that we had to install for electricity that we didn't like. It's just the way it goes. You can't always get what you want, you know?
Right, but I wouldn't have any concerns about putting it where it's going if it's true that there's those other services in the lawn. It doesn't make any sense to,
Agreed, I'm not disagreeing.
Try to-
I guess I just want to be sure.
You know, that's what, I don't mean to step on.
No, that's fine, yeah.
But that's what's missing from this plan is, you know, we hear that there's the other utilities located in particular, they're easy enough to show on a plan, or even on an aerial photograph,
just to see if there was anything shown on our local maps, but I couldn't see any utility connections on that
Yeah, I
map,
didn't-
so.
No, they're just gonna be, yeah, you're gonna get tie books and tie them off of, you know, survey ties off of, structures or features on the ground to be able to locate where they are, and from there you get, at least get an approximation, rather than just a generalized statement. You know, you said, can you screen around just looking at the house photographs, you just, if there was a street view or those other photographs you had?
Yep. So there's that. The driveway.
I was thinking, sometimes you can see the vent pipe from the sewer on the chimney, that's usually just where it's,
Oh,
opposite, that's
alright.
where it's coming out, but, you know, I'm not seeing it on the house, probably in the back roof.
Yeah, that's it for photos.
But to piggyback off of Al is, so we might consider this, then we need to have that sort of documentation. So where is the sewer? Where is the water? That helps us.
Well, also, you see the pedestal there for the underground utilities.
Yeah, that was when they depressed all of the utilities from the telephone
On the
poles.
common,
And we
yeah.
did the common
But
project.
the question, see, that just, to me, begs the question, does anything from that pedestal go underground to the dwelling? Or is that just a splice point for the underground conversion when they took the poles
So
down?
what went overhead to the houses now all goes underground. So yeah, there's also underground electric somewhere. We don't
Well,
know.
it's running the length of the street, because that's...
But also going to the houses
Well,
also underground.
was it stubbed in? That's what I'm asking. I don't know if that's the service entrance, was it stubbed in there? And if it is, that's a consideration. I think we just need to know that. That'll help us make a more informed decision, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, I have no questions.
Doug?
Al, thank you very much. You were so
I got no
knowledgeable.
questions. I also have no problems with the location they're proposing.
Say again?
I have no problems with the location they're proposing, and I think we ought to approve it as such. I think this other talk is a lot of BS.
You don't think it should be moved further away from the resource area if it can be?
I don't think it needs to.
No?
I don't think it affects the resource area.
As long as we condition it that the generator is not in this plan.
Well, it's a separate file.
I know.
So, I mean, it can't...
But I'm just hoping their installation is driven by the generator. That's what I verified.
Well, I guess that's what we're
Generator
asking.
seems to be a different, a completely separate
No, I know.
issue.
I know, but it started out no gas. It started out propane and a generator. Then it became the generator and natural gas. Now all of a sudden, natural gas is coming before us to put a service in.
Okay,
And
it's got a
the
service.
generator hasn't moved anywhere.
No, I assume there is no gas service to the house, period.
Not that I'm aware.
Nothing in
This
existence.
is a new connection, right?
Yeah. this
So
is
I
a new
would think,
connection.
based on what's happened in North Andover and Lerner, he would rethink using gas, period.
No, I don't know.
You can always go to a gasoline generator.
Well, while I respect your opinion, my concern is more driven by protecting the resource area,
Well, personally, I think it's not,
which is kind of what our charge is here.
I understand it's a charge, but showing it where it is, the location of the house, I don't think we affect the resource area.
I got you.
So
Okay, understood.
that's why I have no objections to it being where they propose it to be.
Okay. I understand.
This is the 100, right? It's not even in the 50. Yeah, the sewer, the gas from this house. It is. That's fine. I was looking at the right one before.
So do you want the additional information, or do you want to approve it contingent based on receipt of the additional information, or?
Yeah, I would. I think if some of the commissioners want the additional information, I think that's the way we should go.
Do you want to
So-
continue it based on that, or do you want to make approval, contingent upon them providing that information? And if it-
Exactly. I think that's what we should do.
Say it again.
In other
Which
words,
one?
the decision, we'll vote the decision yes on the,
Contingent upon receipt of a plan that shows the utilities in the location they're describing? And if,
Isn't that a little backwards?
well, that's what I said, did you want to vote it, that they provide the
So
information
let's say
and
the
we vote?
utilities aren't in the way. So how do you reverse the decision?
Yeah, so,
Well, it would be contingent, so if they're not in the way, then they would have to come back,
no, let's make it easier for us.
just continue.
continue.
Same end effect.
Just
Same end effect.
Except Dana's a
Contingent-
busy guy and he's
contingent-
now got to come back. Okay.
If he shows us the utilities.
Okay,
Yeah, there might be questions. I apologize to put you through it.
Oh, no problem at all. I completely understand.
better be on the side of the road.
okay.
I'm sorry?
It's better than being on the side of the road.
That's true.
Move to continue until the next meeting.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
Was the next hearing?
The 24th.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Have a
you.
good evening.
Next one is 102 Sugar Cane Lane,
Great, thank you.
which is a shed. 102
Hi, good
102
evening.
Sugarcane Lane. That one I saw, so I've already seen these.
So there is a prior filing on this property for the pool, I believe, so we had a very nice plan. And there is a wetland out in the location of the shed, and the homeowner can explain to you a little more what he'd like to do.
Right, well, I have an existing 8x8 utility shed. I want to remove that and replace it with a 12x16. I'm outside the 50-foot no-build buffer zone. I'm not looking to disturb any of the trees around the area. I want to place the shed in the existing backyard, the existing, my lawn, my maintained lawn. The shed right now rests on 4 concrete blocks. I mean, this is personal property, nothing's attached to the ground. I can move them. With this one, I want to lay down a base, a foundation of some concrete, some crushed stone. That's the only difference. But I'm not looking to dig the ground up. I mean, the stone's going to go right on top of the existing lawn. And that's essentially all I'm looking to do.
He is aware that he needs to be 30 feet off the lot line per the zoning. I think the aerial line that you see isn't accurate. It shows it very close to, in fact, it shows part of his backyard, not in his backyard, but you have a survey done?
I had a survey done Friday. I don't have the full plan yet. Hopefully I'll get it by the end of the week. But yeah, no, I'm aware of the 30-foot setback. I mean, the only issue would be on the, I guess, the back and then the right-hand side, because on the left-hand side, I'm way beyond the 30-foot mark. But I've got more room in the backyard. I mean, if this is 28, I can come over 2 feet. I don't have any problem with that.
And he, anything would move it farther from the wetland. The wetland's off that back right corner, and his existing shed, which is probably closer to the lot line than it's supposed to be, but was existing, it was more than 50 feet when we measured it.
So we have 2 resource areas. So I'm looking at the plan that probably is associated with the pool. And there's a clearly shown wetland with flag numbers and everything to the left. And then on the right-hand side of this plan, as I look at it, I'm seeing the word erosion control, suggesting there's
Yeah.
something over on the
And that's
abutting
the-
lot.
That's the wetland we measured off of.
Yeah, so we're maintaining the 50 from that. Right off the bat, you said 30 feet off the property line, so we're only talking about another 20. And it looks like the wetland's further than that.
From his original filing, this is the full plan.
Oh, good. And that's what I was trying to do, I was thinking it had to be miles away, and it is.
Yeah, it's not as far away. It may have creeped a little closer over the years, but it's still definitely more than 50 feet away.
Right, the zoning you said was 30, and you're not getting a variance, you're gonna meet
Meet the
zoning.
30.
You're gonna meet the 30. So all we're talking about is 20 feet off, and from his property line to the other wetland is 55, so yeah, you're gonna be close to 60 feet, 70 feet away. I have no questions.
My question is this shed pre-assembled?
Yeah.
The reason why I'm asking is because I'm thinking about getting it behind the, over the driveway into the backyard. Is it gonna have weight?
Sorry.
Is it gonna have weight? You might disappear when you go in the backyard, your septic system is right there.
No, I have a driveway. My driveway kind of comes down, keeps going, it goes into the garage, then it goes down the side of the house and goes straight back. My septic's off to the left. The tank, the leach field comes over to the right, but I still have about 30 feet
Okay.
that I can drive right across and go right to the back. I bought it at Eastern Shed right on 114, and I presume that they, they bring these things in and they build them in a couple hours.
So I was gonna say, it's not already assembled, it's panels that are together, they wheel it in,
Yeah,
small pieces, then assemble it in place.
That's
Versus,
what they said. They said it takes a half a day.
that versus it being completed and just truck it over, that would be heavy.
Yeah.
As far as just putting the stone over the loam,
Sure.
I would suggest at least scuffing the grass and loam off. And leaving it on the site and then loam to it, the stone. Because if you, yeah, because if you put that shed on top of on the loam, stone, and then the shed, it's gonna settle and it's gonna start doing this stuff.
Nothing to do with conservation, it's just a good technique you should be
Right.
careful of. I was thinking the same thing.
Good tip, yeah, okay, good.
Yeah, if you're gonna put it, if you wanna have a solid base, you should go with the stone.
Yeah, right now, yeah, I agree. Okay, thank you.
And then save the loom that he scuffs off, you can do it by hand. Scuff it off and leave it right there, and then you can loom the edges where the stone is. After you set the shed in.
All right, thank you.
Just don't put it in the wetland.
Oh, no, no,
No,
they're the
no.
wetlands, well aware of them, yeah, no problems.
He's gonna use it.
Yeah, no, he has no issues out there, no brush dumping, no issues.
No questions.
Yep. Doug? Motion?
So negative number
Negative.
3 with just pre-construction, you'll stake out the shed where you've decided to finally put it. We'll come look at that. You put it in, we come back and make sure everything's as decided.
So I'll stake it out,
Yep.
then you're coming back out
We'll
before
come
it's
back
built.
up before it's built, just to make sure you're
You
all
made that, right?
set back
You
and
made it. I seconded
just
it.
so that it's as discussed, so they don't come and put it someplace. we
Yeah,
won't
no, I'll do
anticipate.
that, yep, that's no problem, I'll wait till I get the
That'll be
survey.
my motion,
I
Okay.
seconded it.
as described.
And I would put at least 6 inches of stone.
Yeah, they were telling me 3, but, all right,
No, put 6.
6, it's another
He's
tip.
the
You don't
professional.
want, you don't want this, you don't want to settle.
Every bit of stone's gonna move moisture away and not up.
Right.
It's gonna give you an extra 10 years of life.
Well, that's perfect.
Okay, good. All
Okay,
set?
beautiful. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a nice night.
Next one
Thank you.
is
1275 Salem.
1275 Salem Street.
Good evening, I'm Jeff Clark. All I'm really trying to do is regrade the backyard. When I bought the house, there's some spots that, I don't know if it was old trees or whatnot, but there's some divots that make it really hard to not only cut the grass, but for my kids to play. So I'm just trying to add some loam and regrade it from the driveway on the right-hand side. The wetlands is to the left there, so I'm just trying to have an even grade from the driveway down. Not going to go into the wetlands at all, just adding some loam, regrading, reseeding, and that's it.
Did it make its way down?
Which full-size plan?
The full-size plan I gave you guys is 102 Sugarcane.
I don't think it ever got down here.
There were 2.
Lou might have, I don't know.
Okay, that was just the record as built for that file. Sorry.
And oars.
It's here somewhere.
Okay. So there was a prior filing on this lot as well. The prior owner had put on a deck which incurred into the 50-foot, that's it. That's not this, yeah. Which had incurred into the 50-foot no-build zone, and you had required, you see all that planting symbols on the bottom of that plan? That was a required planted buffer zone. So we did some measuring off the driveway and confirmed that that still exists today. However, the edge that you see is actually the edge of wetland, so there is no buffer zone on this site, so they will need erosion control when they do this grading project. This is maintained lawn, it has been maintained lawn, there's nothing about it that should be an issue with the project, but just so it's clear that you'll need to run something for this grading project along that edge of wetland.
Yeah, Peter Breen is going to be the one doing it. They're like well aware of the requirements, and they know exactly what's going to go back there. So he's the one, he helped me out with this plan and all that. He said, you see number 2 there, there's potential for maybe like a small knee wall. There's a garden up there, and if I go down and it's going to have a little bit of a grade, I don't want the garden to wash away. So potentially, we don't really know until we start grading it. Maybe there'd be a small, maybe 10-foot knee wall, just kind of keeping we have some really nice shrubs and
10
plants.
foot long, but relatively shallow.
Yeah, just to keep that, I want to keep some greenery. It hides the street, so if I'm on the deck or in the backyard with the kids, it does kind of give a little more protection, so maybe need that, hopefully not. It'll be a lot more money, but.
And the only thing I other thing I would say is, back in the day, there weren't any wetland markers out right on the trees, on the existing tree
I
line.
haven't seen any. I haven't gone all
Yeah.
the way back, though, so I don't know.
So I would just propose, for the sake of, every 30, 40 feet, putting a few of those markers up, just to, because the wetland is so close to the backyard.
Admittedly so, though, I haven't gone into it, so I
No,
don't know if there's anything back there.
there's no issues. It's just
Okay.
more generally, if any project had been done more recently, they would have required those markers. They're just a good idea to have, so no one, either you or anyone in the future.
Okay, yeah.
Questions?
Yeah, questions that are just more precautions than anything. With second week of October already, so is this is work you want to do now or spring?
He does not sure if we can get it done now. It might be a spring thing
Because that's
at
what I was
this
just going to
point.
caution you, is if you disturb this now and you, even if you hydroseed it and tachify it,
Yeah.
you're really at the end of the season when it's going to pop.
He wants to do it now, and he promises it'll stick, but I think we're going to push to the spring.
And that would be my inclination, because I mean, the last thing you want to have, first of all, you don't have a mud hole in your backyard, and we don't want your mud hole in your backyard going into the resource
Exactly,
area.
exactly.
It's just going to be a headache, so
Yeah.
if you were to hold it off till the latter part of the spring when it gets warm enough before Memorial Day,
Yeah.
you'd still have the same type of rain events, but you wouldn't be worried about that for any long period of time.
Yeah.
So that's my only comment
Yeah,
on that.
it's going to be a spring project.
It's too late, really,
Yeah.
for this season.
Yep.
I have no questions.
Peter's ambitious, by the way, but you're right on the resource area.
Yeah.
I have no questions. Al?
No, I'm all set, thank you.
Yep. Doug? Motion?
Would be, again, the negative number 3 with erosion control, pre and post construction inspections, and the markers.
So moved.
In seasonal start date.
So you want me to preclude them from starting now,
Yes.
even if they? Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
till spring.
So I'll touch base in the spring, or are you going to put a hard date on there, no earlier
No.
than date, or just a
No,
touch base?
there would be no, you just don't do it this season. They don't want it unstabilized all winter long. So
Well,
anytime you want to start in the spring, if it turns out to be 75 at the end of March,
We'd
and
be
you
looking
want
for
to
the
do it.
growing season, so, because
Yeah.
whether you hydroseed or just seed, we want something to
Yeah,
germinate.
no, I just wanted to make sure, that's all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's all we're
perfect.
looking for. It's,
Perfect.
Something to stabilize the soil.
I appreciate it.
We have our interest, we have your interest in mind. Honestly, you'll be fighting it for
Yeah.
all winter long, and you'll regret it.
Yep, perfect.
Okay, all set.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Next one is,
You didn't vote, so you
we did.
threw in
So
the
we're gonna
extra
put the
condition.
seasonal contingency on
in,
it,
so
right.
just vote.
As far as notification, that's the pre-construction that
Yeah, yeah.
you would condition.
Motion?
Motion and second by Deb and seconded by
All those in
Doug.
favor say aye.
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 Opposed? That's unanimous. Now you're all set. Next one is an ANRAD 242, no number yet, 0 Turnpike Street.
Holy cow, where the heck is this?
Huh?
Where is
It's right, it's at the Middleton line in Mercedes, probably right in the middle.
Okay.
You guys got a bunch of
don't care.
trucks.
Just beyond the cities.
Yes, on that same side.
So this is the
Fixtures is off.
aerials of the site, some photos from our site inspection.
Looks organic.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Nature can produce some really splendid colors.
That's coming out of-
I don't know if that's anything they had in mind.
It's coming out of the pipe. Okay, Greg, fire away.
Set. All right, good evening. Greg Hockmuth from Williams and Sparagus, here presenting Bay Development Corporation for the abbreviated Notice of Resource Area Delineation filed for 336 North Main Street in Middleton, 0 Turnpike Street in North Andover. This is the Middleton Farm Supply property. It's the last property on the right as you're heading down 114 towards Middleton. I think everybody knows where it is. We were hired by a developer that's interested in purchasing the property, and the first logical step is always to file and ANRAD, which is why we're here. I'll talk about the simple parts first. So as we always do before we go out to a site like this, we do research. And most of the time, with the tools that we have available to us in the office now, we can get a good idea of what we're going to find when we get there. We used MassGIS Oliver, and we turned on the wetland data layer out here, and it pointed out the wetlands that you see detailed here in green. But it also showed a intermittent stream that flowed or was located on the property. That didn't show in the 2018 aerials. So we traced that back, and right around 2001 it showed itself again. And I think Jennifer provided a photograph of that stream channel. I mean, in our narrative we describe our methodology and what we did to come to some conclusions out here. The first thing we did was we talked to the property owner and we asked him about the stream. And he said, I remember that. It was a drainage ditch. It was dry most of the time. It never saw water after the development went in next door. And the development that I'm referring to is the condominium development to, I guess it would be the west. So I was still a little skeptical, so I went down and I met with Jennifer and I asked if she had any photos that I didn't have access to. I know North Andover has pictometry, and I was hoping that that might shed a little bit more light on the subject, but I think those photos only go back to around 2001, which is roughly when the area was altered. And the property owners admit to filling it in, but they really downplayed the channel itself. According to them, it only saw water after major storm events. Our big question was, what's the source of the hydrology? Where was it coming from? Because typically USGS, if they're showing a stream channel, usually it's substantial. And I will say that the channel that USGS had mapped on the GIS data layer matched up almost exactly with the 2001 aerial that shows a linear shadow. So I think there was a stream there, but the question still remains, was it a jurisdictional intermittent stream? What was it flowing from? The Middleton Farm Supply owners did tell us that before the project went in next door, there was a pond in the front that was out near 114. They said the stream didn't flow out of the pond, but that pond was filled in as part of the development next door. And I guess there was a big fire in Chelsea years and years ago, and a lot of the brick and rubble and rebar was hauled to the condominium site next door and dumped there. And when I went to review the file for that project next door, when we were trying to figure out if there was a stream shown on that project that flowed through that site to here, I saw all those photos, and I do believe that a lot of that brick was dumped over there. So I do think they were telling us the truth with respect to that, and I do think there was a pond out front of that property that was filled in. But the question still remained, you know, what was the source of that stream? I think if there was a source, the wetland that I did flag up here would be a lot larger. There's an isolated wetland up there that does have hydric soils. You can see that water ponds there. It does have a predominance of wetland plants, but it is isolated. I think if there was a stream or some sort of a hydrology source there, it would be still flowing out onto the site. And it's sitting like that for 17 years. Seems a little odd that it's just a little isolated wetland there now. So I do think there is some truth to the fact that that channel did convey stormwater from the property next door, and whatever was done over there could have cut off the hydrology of that channel. But based on our research and what we were able to uncover, we can't confirm whether or not that was a jurisdictional resource area. All we have to go on is what was available to us and what the property owners are telling us. So we came to the conclusion that it more than likely was an intermittent stream, but based on the discussions with the owners, a non-jurisdictional intermittent stream. We can talk a little bit more about that, but I'll just talk about the wetlands that we were able to confirm out here. I talked about the small isolated wetland up here. It is bylaw jurisdictional. It's over the square footage threshold in your regulations. There's a very large bordering vegetated wetland system located on the state forest, which this property abuts. And there is a culvert here that I believe Jennifer has some photos, is carrying some very brown water down the slope that eventually reaches that BVW I described on the state land. So that culvert has an intermittent stream channel with wetlands bordering on it, so those are BVWs down there. Question we had about that culvert is, what is that flowing from? Because every time I go out here, it's flowing pretty good. It did dry up a little bit this summer, but for the most part, it flows almost all year round. It's not shown as a perennial stream on the USGS map, so I don't think there's a question of whether or not it's perennial. But our question was, where is that coming from? It's directed this way. So we asked the property owners again about that, and they told us that they did some blasting behind the farm, well, the office/barn, which is up here. There was some ledge back here that they blasted, and they claimed that after they blasted, they had a lot of water bubbling up from the bedrock. So they simply dug a ditch, put a pipe in, and that's the source, according to them, of the water that I'm seeing coming out of that culvert.
And that's up, sorry, keep going.
Yeah, it's pretty flat, but it is up gradient.
Upgrading from the lower wetlands, and, you know, how much rock did they blast, 700 feet? Of course not. Chances of something would become artesian and start flowing with lowland wetlands right next to it is not logical.
Right. This is what I'm being told. So short of cameraing the pipe and finding out if it does in fact go up there and does dead end where they blasted, it's all I have to go on. There are not any wetlands shown in that area on MassGIS, but this property over the years has been manipulated, moved around. It's currently active with several different landscape companies. There's contractor storage yard in portions of it. There's trailers. It's been graded, it's been worked, it's been moved around. There were dirt bike tracks. There was a horse paddock. And the son of the owner is very knowledgeable. He pretty much grew up on the property, and he's the one that told me all the history. So I do believe everything that he's telling me. But as far as why the water is brown, I will say there's no odor to it. The best conclusion that we can come up with is that it's probably iron oxidizing bacteria, which is brown, and it is from iron-rich bedrock, iron-rich groundwater. And if they did blast and that bedrock was full of iron, that could be why we're seeing the brown water coming out. But as far as the central portion of the site, I'm positive there's no wetlands up there, but the stream remains a question, and the source of the water coming out of the culvert remains a question. And I know the commission's going to have some questions.
Joe?
Well, the questions, I think, is just a little more research, and I think you've done a good job so far, but there's a little bit more you might be able to scratch at. Look at the Essex County layout for 114. Look at Mass DOT District 4 plans. That roadway was laid out a long time ago, and the water features that they bridged across with culverts on either side of 114 are going to show up, and what other streams were there are going to show up.
Right.
Back in the day, you know, back in the 50s, and back when it was re-laid out in, I think, early 60s, mid-60s. You know, that's a great source to get some more historic information going further back. Short of that, these types of lands constantly get manipulated, and you know, we talk about the out country. This is the way out country. You know, half of it's in Middleton, for that matter.
And there was a
There
big...
wasn't a lot of stuff being watched out that area.
Yeah, they had, I want to say 800,000 tires. I think most of them have been removed. The ones that are still there are under protection. There's
800,000?
Yeah.
800 to 1,000.
800,000.
So Greg, you might want to take a look too, because I'm on it, and I'm not seeing a lot of other, nothing really shocking of the historic aerials from 65, 69, 71, and 78. Looks like more work into the land.
Yeah.
But there are, they have the historic aerials written, so you'll have to look at them a little closer. I see something that looks like a small pond toward the back at one point, but I don't know, you might garner a little more information from there.
And, a good chunk of this is on the Middleton side. We also filed an ANRAD with Middleton. So we're going to be working with them on this also. But our client wants this all flushed out before he buys it. And I will say that he's going to be doing a 21E study. And he knows about the culvert and the brown water, and that's something that his 21E specialist is going to be looking at as well. The last thing he wants to do is buy something that he's going to have a very expensive cleanup on. Because the purpose of buying this is to do some type of a development out here.
I'm isolating my train of thought from the 21E question. That's going to be handled by others in a very, very different way than what we would concern ourselves with. But the fact that it's piped, not necessarily covered, I mean, how big is that pipe?
It's 12-inch
Right, so not really
corrugated
covered in
metal.
it. Yeah,
It's in really rough shape.
It's just a pipe. So, it was put in for a reason. It was moving water way before they blasted. The coloring, maybe an empty pipe wasn't installed for the purpose of conveying air. It was put in to convey water. The fact that it still conveys water tells me, well, it's doing its job. Maybe it's a little more robust than it used to do, but in the reality, it's only put in the ground for a reason. So there's got to be a source that we just haven't scratched and found yet.
Right, and if it is groundwater, then I believe the jurisdictional resource area would start and stop
At the
where we
discharge.
show it.
At the
Exactly.
discharge, yeah.
Um,
Is it corrugated? I use it corrugated. Is it perforated? I can't tell.
No, it's not. It's not.
Plastic or
Unless they
corrugated metal?
changed it, once it, corrugated metal,
Corrugated metal.
yeah.
I'm all set then.
The only questions I have is the culvert must have been there before the pipe? Or the culvert was there before the pipe?
The color of the water?
No, you said there was a culvert there?
Oh, so the pipe, the corrugated metal.
Oh,
pipe.
that's it, just
Yep.
discharges there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's my main concern. The color of the water is another concern. And like you say, this site has been pretty well abused. And I would be willing to bet that orange water is steel that's buried. That's why the first question I asked her was 21E. It doesn't affect us at all. But I know certain areas in town, what they did and how they did it. The condominium next door, I remember seeing them dump trailers coming from Boston and dumping the debris back
Yep.
in the back of the site.
My client's attorney told me I could tell the commission that they'd be more than willing to share the 21E report with the commission.
And you're sure that the water flows up, not down? Because behind there is a huge wetland.
Oh, no, it's flowing.
It's coming from
flowing
114
It
down.
is coming down, okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's why I wonder what they did with that stream that didn't have any water. If they did pipe it, or somebody piped it.
I'm gonna lay odds. You're gonna look at the county layout plans or the DOT plans from the county that are now on record at District 4, and you're going to find Route 114 drainage network that was discharged to what were open ditches that are no longer open ditches, and you're moving water underneath this property from the highway. In the two locations, that's what the purposes were.
We'll take a look at those.
You don't think there's any chance it's connected to the wetlands at the front of the site on the Middleton side?
We walked over there. We
Because
walked
there's
up.
almost, in the older aerials, there's almost like a stream outlet on that wetland.
So that flows towards Middleton, that pond.
The flow is into the pond, like overland flow into the pond?
So there's a high point behind where the office and barn is, and that's the
Yeah.
ledge that they blasted?
So this, whatever this looks like, right here, flows that way. That's the house in the
See the water here?
barn right there,
2001,
on the Middleton side.
is it still here? Yes, so, not much change.
Yeah, yeah. So down here is the,
It all found its way out back there. That wetland over there used to find its way at that side.
Yeah.
Dominic Terranova's building, old building.
The culvert,
is, yeah,
Here.
down in here.
but
But the-
this is where all the tires were dumped.
Right, but there's nothing coming out of here potentially being, like, it doesn't flow that way is what you're saying?
No, this is a big field that's all upland,
But
and there's a
that-
pond here, and
yeah,
that flows this way.
That way, okay. Not the source of our water.
You what?
Not, I just wondered, there's wetlands at the front of the site on the Middleton side. I wondered
Yeah.
if there was any chance they were subsurface connected, but they flow the other way.
So it's one of those times when I feel like your interests, really truly our interests here tonight, because you're representing a client that is conducting due diligence, and we're charged with protecting the resources in the town, and it sounds like they're going to be riding in the same truck. So you answered a couple of my questions already. The 21E was one of my questions, and part of the 21E would be a baseline water test on whatever's coming out of the pipe. And you had mentioned the brick dumping from the Chelsea fire. That was in 1982, that Chelsea fire that you're talking about. And the only reason why I know is because I was on the same job then that I'm on now. And so we were part of that restoration later. So from 82 till now, you could assume that in addition to bricks, there may have been other debris that was brought out of Chelsea that needed a place to land. So you could have a real large variety of stuff that's settled into the soil over the past 40 years. And I think the 21E, I think that's the correct way to go with that, and the wetland science that you and Jen can provide. Until I have further information based on what you're telling me, I'll just sit back and wait and see what you come up with.
I think the only way we can shed a little light on the pipe and what it's flowing from is to do some sort of a camera or a transmitter, just to see even what direction it's going.
Well, if you see what's coming out of it, that would help too. Because if you can identify what's in the water, that's going to answer a lot of your questions. Is it from a graveyard that was of buried machinery, or is it from a hole that was dug and half of Chelsea was dumped in 40 years ago? I mean, you just don't know. And what's coming out of there, that testing will tell you more than we can speculate on. And in a case like this, I like to see the science drive the project. So I'm anxious to see what your results are.
I will say that the owners of this parcel told us that none of the brick from the Chelsea fire was dumped on this site. It was all next door.
Next door. Well, still, I mean, 800,000 tires and brick from Chelsea and God knows what else. It's had plenty of time to work its way down into the soil and down into the groundwater. Plenty of time to percolate, as we say.
That area has enlarged over the years. So I don't know what the use for fill on.
So anyway, you've got the right approach. I like the approach, and I'm going to wait to see what you do.
What I'm uncertain of is, how far back can we even go? So let's say there was a resource area that they,
Phil
filled
is,
on their own. What, there is no statute of limitations, right? If we can,
not on Phil, no.
what?
Not on Phil, that's my understanding generally.
Not on
And
filling.
it's the same owner, so.
Yeah, usually pre-72 is the magic number, but there's no statute of limitations on wetland filling.
So if we can
Unless,
determine there was a resource area and the ditch was a brook, and if, there's a big if there, right?
right.
I mean, there is a violation that defeated that resource area, and now, is it within our purview to, not on an ARAD perhaps, but, how do we make that how do we correct that? How do you restore that?
Let's see what it is first.
Yeah.
Right. If it was a jurisdictional resource area, the commission would have every right to issue an enforcement order requiring its restoration. And that was
But
what...
not through an ANRAD.
No, that would, I imagine the commission would require the filing of a notice of intent with some
We
sort of a
do separate
restoration plan.
enforcement order.
Right. Right. But, you know, based on what
So I'm wondering, are we just spinning ourselves in circles? The reality is we're not. We ought to determine what the piped item is and what the ditch was. And if we can rule those out as resources ever, then that issue goes away.
Exactly.
But I'm not so sure we have that answer yet. I know you've done a lot of work, but I don't think we're there yet.
No, I think there's a few more things we can do. You know, one of the reasons why I do think there's some truth to what I've been told is if that stream was as substantial as you'd think it would be if it was shown on a USGS map,
The impacts.
you'd still see water
Yeah.
spilling out on that portion of the property. It was a pretty major development that went on next door, and they could have intercepted some sort of a hydrology source that used to shed water onto this site. Maybe now it goes out back. I don't know. But I am going to recommend that we get a camera or some sort of a transmitter in that pipe, and we go back and look at the layouts just to see if those will shed a little light on this. And the property owners said they'd be more than willing to come to the commission and tell you everything they told me. I tried to put it all in writing in the narrative, just to be as open as we could.
Where on the plan is this pipe at the top?
So it's right between the C8 and C7. We'll add that to the plan.
Yeah, it would be helpful. And also, what would be helpful is whatever wetlands are in Middleton that are on this plan, since you're gonna be representing your client before Middleton, that would be shown, so we can get a picture of the whole picture and not just half the picture.
So the blue line I have across the plan is the town line.
I know it's the town line, and it separates our jurisdiction, but the wetlands are, they don't give a shit about town lines. So it would be helpful to have all the information on the plan, so we get a sense of how everything is. And then if there is a pipeline or a potential stream, at least these pictures that are here show that there is a streamline that's shown on the plan, so we get a sense of what we're talking about.
We could superimpose the approximate location of the stream that's shown on the aerials on the
It'd be
plan.
helpful
Yeah, we can do that.
to get a sense of the whole thing.
Okay, are you done?
Yeah.
Okay. What happened to all the tires? You said there were quite a lot of them left, but what did they do with them?
Yeah, DEP was involved. There was an administrative consent order issued. I think there's an active AUL on the site. There's signs everywhere that says, "Do not walk through here, contaminated material." I think everything that was below ground was removed, but everything that was above ground is still there. And there's a plan to remove them, but the person responsible for the tires ran out of money. I don't know how that works, but I know that DEP is not going to just give up and go away.
Yeah.
Right. And it's pretty bad. They're all in the wetland. There's monitoring wells everywhere.
That's how Superfund sites get started.
Yeah.
Right,
Somebody runs out of money and
Yep.
it has to get cleaned up.
right.
When are you planning on conducting the water analysis?
That's a good question. I don't have the answer.
Okay, and then what will you be testing for? Everything, or, there are certain tests that you could do? What do you hope to find, or what are you going to be testing?
It'll at least be the minimum required for a property such as this, whatever's required for a 21E study.
Okay.
But I can find out the specifics on that and let the commission know. I have to talk to the client and find out who he's using and get in touch with that person.
Okay, at least it would be heavy metals.
I would assume so.
Yep, okay.
So it's fair to say there'll be an LSP assigned to oversee the 21.
Not necessarily,
No?
not until, a 21E can just be conducted to determine what the issue is, and then once they file it and the cleanup comes in, it gets far more stringent.
Yeah.
But right now, the presumption is it's clean.
I know on the initial.
Exactly.
I know on the initial phase of a 21E, it's mostly deed research to see what was there historically, but then at some point, the wells go in.
Right.
I hate to say it, that's not our conversation, that's gonna be the bank that this guy's gonna use as a lender, and the buyer, they're gonna determine what level
I would think the buyer would want to know that. If I were the buyer, I'd want to know
Unless
it.
he's paying cash, if he's going to a bank, he's gotta have to have.
So I don't care if I'm paying cash. I don't care if I'm the wealthiest buyer around. I want to know that before I lay some money down on this.
I mean, I will say that there is no odor. There's vegetation growing all over the place out there. It doesn't look like a contaminated stream. Well, it looks like a contaminated stream, but, you know,
But it
typically
is.
when you see brown, and if it is what you think it is, the vegetation will be all brown, and it will be scant, it will
You've seen
be,
the rainbow oily sheet, it's nothing but decomposing leaf litter. It looks like oil, but
Right.
it's not.
right. But until we do the analysis, we're just speculating.
That's it, Deb?
I just want to say, Greg, very, very thorough and very entertaining, and you are darn good.
Yeah, thanks.
Doug? I'm all set. All right, so we need,
Act
continue?
2 in 2 weeks.
Right.
With more stories.
Because you don't go through the end.
I'll try to find some good ones. Hopefully
Okay,
some
you
more
back in
answers.
2 weeks?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I think that'll give us enough
Motion
time.
Continue.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, there's a look at my history look up. We should tell him about next door, because I think that is a Superfund site. You know that?
If we know it, the pros know it.
You think? Yeah, because I think Fuzzy Sheriff's Garage is a Superfund site, I think. I can't remember, but I think it already is. 242-1739, requested continued to 10/24.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's
The
unanimous.
record has to reflect that I did not vote, that I recused, did not participate in any part of that last Ray Street subdivision up there.
Did you email them today? Craig, I have an issue with this plan for Ray Street, and you're part of this, I believe.
I'm playing a minor role.
Mine role. If you could pass it on to Christian Sergi, I was hoping TJ was gonna be here. I have a real issue with topos. I don't have existing topos or proposed topos on the project.
Right. I understand there's still a question about how the floodplain was calculated, and I'm going to pass that information along to Christensen and Sergi, and hopefully they can shed some light on that.
Because I'm going to talk to Jen in the future. I have a real issue on these plans that come through, and they don't have elevations. Existing elevations or proposed elevations.
Well, there's a lot of elevations on the plan. The plan.
But not
the
enough.
The topo that's missing is the floodplain topo.
Right. I understand the issue, I believe. It's when you're reading their methodology of how they calculated the floodplain, and you compare that methodology to the plan, the contours that you should be seeing where they did their transects, they don't show.
Right.
So either, they should agree, and right now the call's into question which one's valid or which one isn't. The fact
Right.
that there aren't any, or the fact that you analyzed something that maybe you didn't have data on.
And it is a complex floodplain out there. You have two streams converging. It steps as it goes down towards the culverts. Phil's very confident that he's calculated it correctly. But I will admit, I was a little confused after reading it as well.
Yeah, that was the wrong narrative. I just have an issue, because I'm a layman, I won't deny it, but I go by elevations, and if I don't see them, I get befuddled. All the state-of-the-art stuff goes, like we did the Osgood Street stormwater, and it's all state-of-the-art chambers and not the old-fashioned catch basins and storm scepters and piping. So I have to, for my own personal thing, is I like to make sure. And this subdivision, for what I've seen so far, I'm not getting a warm and fuzzy feeling, so.
I'll make sure I pass that on, and part of the reason we requested the continuance was because DEP had just issued some comments, and we didn't want to come back to the commission until we had addressed all those comments.
Okay.
And buttoned up a few things that we know you're looking for.
Very good, thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Next one is enforcement order 43 Scott Circle.
this was a violation, I forget, oh, we should get, can you? Next presenter. You have some photos, some historic, I don't know if there's historic aerials, but just, probably just the aerial. I forget how Savannah came to hear about this. Did a neighbor call about the fill, or somebody must have called us, because we went out there, and we've had nothing but cooperation from the homeowner. He hired Jack Sullivan to do the plan that's in front of you. This was required by the enforcement order to get the wetland delineated and to show the fill material that was brought out there. This plan doesn't show that there was a prior turnaround in this location, not as at all extensive as this one. It's maybe doubled in size in some locations, maybe not quite that much in other locations. The issue is when this structure was constructed back in the 90s, I think. Yeah. The wetland out back was determined to be an isolated wetland, and not the ephemeral pool it likely is. There are 2 certified vernal pools adjacent to this that look exactly like the isolated wetland that's behind this house, but they weren't called that back when this called out. So there really isn't, and as you can see, the houses would be in the 50-foot no disturb, but there is fill in the 25-foot no disturb and between 25 and 50. And with that, I don't know what you'd like to present, but.
So just to add to what Jennifer said, Norse Environmental flagged the wetland, and I said, you got to get out there quickly, and they emailed me right away and said, this could be a vernal pool. But I did the same research, the original subdivision showed it just as BVW. So Norse did flag the wetlands. I went out, I did the as-built survey showing the existing conditions. I could see 2 stumps. The homeowner said those were dead trees that he had cut. I tried to show the existing trees that still are there today. And basically what he was looking to do is, when you pull out of the garage, it is only about 26 feet to the edge of pavement, and then it sounded like there was a steep drop-off. He tried to level that out. He brought in really gravel and large crushed stones, some of the crushed stones 3-inch plus. And he leveled that area and then sloped it off to the limit of the fill line that I show here. From the top of slope to the bottom of slope, it's greater than a 2-to-1 slope. But it is large stone. And I located, there was a large brush pile in the vicinity of flags 4A to 5A. I pointed out to the homeowner the day after I did the survey. He's already cleaned that all up. And there was an area that Jennifer had pointed out with grass clippings and leaf dumpings in the vicinity of flags 7A to 6A, and he cleaned that area up too. So everything he's been asked to do, he has done. I tried to fast track this. When he called me and told me it was under enforcement order right away, I got on it. And so we're basically here tonight to see how the commission wants to deal with this.
Good summary. I just want to make sure that understanding the materials that were brought in, there was no migration beyond the actual placement of materials. Nothing's eroding, nothing's washing down into the resource areas. It sounds to me like it's pretty stable. In fact, crushed stone's probably non-stable. If not anything, it's filtering, right?
Yeah, I came out after one of, there was one of those storm, we've had some heavy rain events in the last couple of weeks, and the survey I did was following one of the rain events. There was no washout at the bottom.
Okay.
I mean, it was fully stable.
So I guess we'd have to ask ourselves, if this was coming in as part of an application to build the house, and assuming the house was outside the 50, we'd allow them to grade the yard and provide protection measures up to the 25 as best as we could. It's not his driveway, it's just a slope area, so it's part of the grading of the yard. So what we really have is just that very small area inside the 25, that very thin, on the plan, very thin.
If you're sticking with a 25-50 and not the 50-75, that would be the vernal pool setback. And I'm not saying that we should apply that necessarily, I'm just saying that, just recognizing the sensitivity of what the area is, if he went to permit this driveway extension, I'm not saying you wouldn't have allowed him to expand the driveway. I'm not sure you would have allowed him to expand it that close to a vernal pool.
You're absolutely correct. I lost sight of the vernal pool part of that discussion. You're right. That changes it to 50/75 as opposed to 25/50.
Right, and I'm not saying, again, that we wouldn't allow him to expand. That's why my recommendation is I don't have a problem with any of the expansion between the 50 and the 75. I mean, even when Savannah and I were out there, and we have that little electric car, we needed the extra driveway to turn around in his driveway. There's no doubt there's a need for some additional turnaround space out there, or even extra parking so someone who's in the garage can back out when there's another car in the driveway kind of thing.
But did this not come before us when it was built in the 90s?
The house did, but not the expanded turnaround area.
No, what was
Yeah.
what was there was what we permitted
Yep.
at the time the house was built.
Well, you didn't permit any turnaround area, but the homeowner is not the original homeowner, and what little extra turnout there was already there when he bought it.
You said the extra turnout area, that's what you're showing is the old gravel area
Yes,
at the end of the driveway?
I believe so.
No, I don't think we don't have the extra file.
I'll ask the homeowner that, Joe, just to be sure. See on the plan how I show old gravel area
Yeah.
off the end of the driveway? Was that the turnout when you bought this less than a year ago?
4 years ago.
4 years ago. So he's been the owner for 4
For
years.
4 years. So it was gravel originally over there, even though there is no asphalt for driving, but there was gravel extended the driving ways already. I just added over there and leveled it around.
So with that understood, Jen, the original permit was for the driveway, the house, the garage?
Yep.
but not the old gravel area. That's someone else added a while ago. So that's, but the rest of the yard area and what you see out there, short of the dumping, generally in compliance with what we originally approved.
Savannah had pulled the old plan. I don't have it with me, so I don't really know what amount of clearing was proposed on that plan. I'm gonna have to find that.
These flags that are there now, is that what Norse just filed?
Yes.
Or is that from a record from back then?
No,
Has the resource line changed? So, because now, if the house is in the 50 just barely, maybe back then it wasn't.
it could have changed.
It's an isolated wetland though, so it isn't sort of, I mean, it could have, with the additional pavement around and those sorts of things. I mean, I'm looking at historic aerials. It's been pretty much the same over the years.
It wouldn't change that drastically, though, because the site slopes off and then it
Pretty
kind of
abrupt,
levels
isn't it?
out, It
If
might
anything,
change a
the
couple
water-
feet.
The water looks deeper in like 2008 and 2009 than it does in 2014. So
I tried to look back over historic
it doesn't look
photos.
like,
It was
the
hard to
wetland
tell.
itself doesn't look like it's changed much.
No.
So with the discussion of the resource area, I guess any action we might consider, are you concerned with what's improved in this lot affecting the habitat of the ephemeral pool, or the vernal pool for that matter?
I think you can see on the side closest to the, I would rather see that slope that comes down to on the vernal pool side be less of a slope, be graded back. I don't have as much concern, like I said, as you get outside of that 50-foot no-build zone or 50-foot no-disturb zone as it would be under the ephemeral pool criteria, I have less concern about the work and the slope over there. And I do think there's less of a buffer at the end of that driveway. You can see right into the vernal pool now.
So from the stability perspective, I'm actually pretty comfortable with it, but what I'm really recognizing now is that's the southeast side of the house. If it is rocky and stony, there's some solar gain. Those rocks are holding heat, you're now affecting the runoff being warmer, getting
Warmer,
into that vernal
yeah.
pool. It's gonna affect the habitat and how it's used, just by temperature. That's one of the things the buffer zone's looking to protect. So if it is an ephemeral pool and we're looking to protect it, and that resource is 75 foot from the buffer zone, where most of that slope is gone, if that's what we're leaning towards.
This is one of those, we don't do a lot of site visits, but it might be helpful if a few people could make it out there to take a look at this before you propose some kind of restoration, just to see what it looks like and to see what's required for his driveway radius versus what might be able to be pulled back some.
And that's exactly where I'm coming from, because I'm hearing from the utility piece of using the driveway, clearly it's something that seems to be appropriate. The fact that it's stable is a good thing, but still we're close to the buffer, and that's what I gotta get the feel for. I mean, it's just an isolated pool, do we know it's being used, is it a potential vernal pool?
The two on either side of it are two certified vernal
Certified
pools.
vernal pools.
I
Just one
would
just
have,
simply isn't certified, it
Yeah.
likely would be
likely would
certified.
be. I think the wetland scientists that went out to flag it acknowledged that. I think we could see that immediately. And, you know, I mean, this has more than doubled the size of the driveway. I'm no driveway engineer, but I'm not really sure that much space is needed for safety purposes.
Those are the questions I have, and I don't think we can answer them, because I can't put them in context, and I would be willing to look at it with you guys.
Okay.
It is a large area. Why they have it on the side of the driveway, I don't know. I know his wife had a problem getting in and out, but the way it's set up to turn out and then drive out the driveway. Now, this has functioned since 1990, right? Is that when the house was built? 90. So
93.
it's not that it's a new construction house that the driveway is, they just put the driveway just to make everybody happy. This driveway has functioned for a long time. I could see putting a turnout on the backside, you know, enlarging the old gravel area for turning out, but the side part, I don't understand at all. Some spots are 50 feet. I mean, you can put a tractor trailer in there.
You got wider. So the only thing I can say, Lou, is like 93, you know, a lot of people didn't have the big pickup trucks. He has a larger truck like I do. When I pulled in my Chevy Silverado, I wouldn't have been able to turn into his garage and get out again. You know, I think the size of the vehicles
I'm not saying
have
take it,
changed.
it is
But it is,
big.
I agree with Jennifer in a way, and I told the owner that, is right now it's like a 1.5 to 1 slope down, you know, so he'd have to pull that top of slope back about 8 feet to get like a 3 to 1 slope, which this commission typically looks for. And to follow up Joe's point, you know, there is some slight encroachment of about 142 square feet into the 25-foot zone.
The back half.
So there's some ability to regrade that slope out a little bit better and pull the top of slope back.
Yeah, that's my main concern.
When you see it, that might be that's the first thought I had when I was out there.
The backside doesn't have to be that large. I think it can be enlarged, but not as far as it is. Doesn't appear to be, just looking at the plan. And like I said, to get a better slope on it, because if his wife goes up a 2 to 1 slope, she's going for a ride.
Right. She already took a tumble, right?
Yeah, that's why I talked.
Not in her vehicle, she fell.
She fell. She fell
She got
down the
hurt.
slope.
Yeah.
And that's why he did this.
After the accident, is all this thing I did. Even if you look
No.
at it to the back side, there's a lot of previous areas.
I agree. I mean, if that's your, it's out of our BB, the 50-foot we allow to put material there. But the backside, where the old gravel area is, where you would back out of the driveway and then drive straight out, I don't think it has to go back that far.
Like I said, I think we should go take a look, even if a couple of us can get out there just to sort of decide what's necessary and what's, could be pulled away from the wetland some.
Okay. Al?
As I said, I was on the commission when we permitted Scott Circle. These discussions were difficult at the permitting stage when the houses were under construction, because the developers and the builders that were putting these houses up were pleading the same case that you're pleading now. We need room, and it was a choice that they made at the time with location of the house. And I'm not even looking at the possibility of an ephemeral or a vernal pool, because when the house was built, that wasn't in play. So I'm not gonna impose a levy now that wasn't in play at the time of the house. But what was in play was the 2550. And we literally wrestle with this at every meeting. I'm sure you've sat through dozens of meetings where we argue, or not argue, but we discuss how much driveway someone needs, and we've had people reorient their houses to keep the driveways out of areas where we don't want them. We do it all the time. And if this came, the question that I have to ask myself was, if this had come in to me as an NOI or an RDA or a modification of some kind or an amendment, would I vote for it under those conditions before the work was done? Because right now, we're looking at this retro. But if this didn't, if you brought us a plan and you said, this is what the existing conditions are and we think it's dangerous, how much would we give you? And that's the answer I don't know, because the driveway discussion is a big one that we have all the time. We just had a major discussion on houses that are under construction now, and, you know, we try to do what's right, but at the same time, there's always that push to get enough driveway to be able to have grandma back out of the garage and not go flying. I get it,
Right.
but those are choices that the builders make when they start these projects. So in fairness to everybody, I think I'll reserve my opinion until a site visit can report back. I won't make any assumption until then.
That's fair. And to follow your point up, Al, when I was doing the registry research on this, they showed the house in 3 different locations before they finally decided on where it got built. So there were different plans floating around all over the place.
Even recorded.
Yeah,
And this is
yeah.
and that's not an unusual situation. That we struggle with that all the time. So anyway, I'll hold off until I hear back. If I'm able to participate in the site visit, I will, obviously, but if I cannot, I'll wait to hear what my fellow commissioners report back, and I'll
Okay.
render an opinion then.
Okay.
Deb? No question. Doug? No question. Motion to keep, how are we gonna do this now?
I'll send around some possible dates, and we'll see if we can pick something. I'll keep you in the email, so you can let us know what works for
4
you.
weeks
too.
would be better for me.
Four
I
weeks.
know at your next meeting, I have a big meeting in Reading.
No, we can, if you want 4 weeks, you can have 4 weeks.
Okay.
Is that a date that works?
Yeah.
Anything else before we move it? I'll move that we continue for 4 weeks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
Great,
Jack.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next one is 46 Hollow Tree Lane, Lally.
So Mr. Lally's plan just came in today. Or yesterday, or you just got it?
I got it, it was
Yes.
sent to me on an email yesterday.
Right.
It got dropped off my house over the weekend, but I wasn't home.
So everybody's more or less seeing it for the first time. I did speak with Hancock because some of the information that we had requested is not on the plan. They did not include the riverfront area. They said they ran the stream stats from the culvert that comes onto your property, when actually the stream that's out there is Fish Brook. And it is on your property, and it does have a riverfront area, which they didn't put on this plan.
I have it listed in the delineation, it's listed as intermittent stream.
Yeah, it's Fish Brook, and so it's listed in the commission's bylaw as perennial. So it's, I let Kyle.
We deliberately we named some.
Right, and I ran stream
20 years
stats
ago.
on Fish Brook, and I actually got that portion of it to be perennial where it leaves the property, but needless to say, it needs to be on there. They also didn't put bordering land subject to flooding. They claim that it may or be close to the BVW line. They didn't put that into the report, but they can, because there is no elevation for BVW on this property, they can superimpose it just off of the plans that.
What is BBW?
BLSF, bordering land subject to flooding, and there's a FEMA floodplain line that they could superimpose on this plan, even though there's no elevation. We could also see if there's an elevation for somewhere else in that area that they could draw the line on the plan based on an elevation. The plan was also supposed to include permanent monumentation and a restoration area.
Those two resource areas not shown on the plan doesn't heighten any level of protection, and it doesn't change what he's proposing. It's for the record to get it on there, correct?
I'm assuming that it doesn't. You can't we talked about altering grades in the 100-year flood.
In floodplain you can't, right?
Right, and so where that line falls on this plan, in my opinion, if you look at the line on the FEMA maps, and again, nothing sort of, it's not based on an elevation, if that line were just superimposed on this plan, I think it's probably closer to the 25-foot no disturbance zone, but again, that's not going to be disturbed, but it just should be on here.
Should be on here, right, exactly.
It's information that we need. This also hasn't gone before MISA, which only has the problem of possible conflict. So if
Right,
the
so-
commission approves the project and then MISA says, no way, replant the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I think you need to be in process with them before we, just to
In
make
or- In order
sure
to file with MISA, I had to have this, and I didn't
you
get
had
this
to have the
yesterday,
plan. So
it
again,
was-
it's all about timing, but those are my concerns just at this point. I don't think it's anything that can't be addressed. But Mr. Lally hadn't been here in some time, so I just wanted him to bring what he had and give you an update, and then we can move forward from here.
And looking at the area now that I have this, you can see where that 25-foot buffer comes across, across the existing tree line. And if you notice there, basically, there's one little triangle to the eastern edge of the property that does not show trees in the 25-foot zone, and then it's a larger one right to the center. I went out there and walked it today. In that triangle to the east, there is one stump, and depending on exactly where that line falls in the ground, there's either 2 or 4 stumps in the other area. So we've got possibly up to 6 trees, and also in both those spots, it is currently, seasonal, a lot of, probably mostly weeds. It is currently, with the exception of where there's a little too much brush, completely vegetated within the 25-foot buffer zone.
Oh, that's what we were curious about. We just weren't seeing progress. We knew
Right.
somebody was at work, we just didn't know to what extent. I think that the other two resource areas, though they're likely to have minimal impact to what you ultimately do out here, they do need to be shown as a resource area on the
Okay.
record drawing. So I think it's more than reasonable for us to ask for that. All we have now at this point is just the plan. We still don't have the proposal, so what are you gonna do out there yet?
He's preparing
That's
the after-the-fact
That's the next
RDA.
step. That's the
Right.
next step.
Right, but I think the RDA would be for the after-the-fact clearing of the rest of the land. The, still under the enforcement action would be, I think you told him, some kind of boulder wall along the 25, I think is
So-
what was discussed.
And that was the question, does it have to be a wall, or is there some other type of permanent monumentation that can be put in? Or what are all the options for?
I think we've had this discussion, and I think what you decided was there were no options, because what you wanted was your consistent boulder, 2-foot by 2-foot dry lake fieldstone wall. So when you propose things sort of forward-thinking, there maybe are more options, but what I've gotten out of every hearing we've had is that you wanted the wall. Or that's what I put in the enforcement order based on our last discussion.
We might be unanimous in that type of discussion, we may not be, but I tell you, the decision ultimately will be that they're gonna want a physical barrier, at the very least, and it's likely to be a wall. There's 2 colleagues not here who
I think we already had this.
would have my head for being wishy-washy,
I know,
because they want the wall.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, the fact that
Why?
we now know that
They do want it.
it's a perennial stream.
All the more reason.
Raises the bar. If it were an intermittent stream, maybe you could have the conversation, but I don't think it's on the table anymore.
I agree. So
Well, the wording from the enforcement order that you issued at the last meeting is about, I copied it into the,
Yep. No, understood.
agenda.
I just listened
It's
to,
it's not on my table, so.
but I also just listened to you describe
Resource areas.
what
rather.
deficiencies are needed in the plan and identifying what the resource area is, so that makes a difference.
All set, Al?
I am.
Deb? No questions. Doug?
No question.
Okay. So we have to get the 25 foot on the plan, right? So for the wetlands put on?
We need the
We need the stream.
CLSF,
And we need the stream to
and we
be able.
need the riverfront. Those are two resource areas
How
that
much
are
time,
shown.
how much time do you
Yeah,
think?
not,
Good, Doug.
before one question I have, this plan, why did the surveyor leave the front of the house off and the information?
I was kind of curious about that myself.
There's no impact, so we asked for the impacted area,
Yeah.
just to show you where FEMA puts the
You're gonna put a
watering
wall
land
up or
subject to
something like
flooding.
that,
Okay.
you're gonna
And that's
very
the
well
perennial
wanna go
stream
out.
that the
Right.
commission maps.
So the information should be shown on the
Okay.
plan.
Yeah, I agree.
The draftsman charges per ounce of ink.
Just so, that's bordering land subject to flooding according to the FEMA map, so.
And there's
Well, that's because you have a perennial stream. That's the data that we.
Right, I'm just saying, I'm not sure that it falls within the wetland resource area.
I got you.
but that's just an overlay.
Right, but, I mean, if people call you asking for copies of the FEMA map, that's what they get, is that line on a plan. Sometimes it's associated with an elevation, we talked about that with Greg's project, sometimes it's not. But unless you want to do a flood study, and I'm assuming that they don't, that line on the plan serves as bordering land subject to flooding until further, I mean, unless they want to do something to disprove it. And anything that's outside of it, FEMA will write a letter that says not shown within the mapped area, so, which your house falls out of it, so I'm assuming you don't have flood insurance.
You do not.
But we do want the stream identified too, right?
Right, yeah, and the stream is,
So the BLSF and the stream.
and then what's known as riverfront area, so it's 200 feet from mean high water of that stream, but it's a pretty defined channel, so that shouldn't be a difficult line either.
How much time do you think you need now? 2 weeks.
I'll call Hancock tomorrow and
Yeah, I
say
already
this stuff
alerted
has-
them, so
Okay.
that they're already aware of it, but
Okay.
you should talk to them about getting the work on there. So I would think 2 weeks, and he plans to file the RDA, if you want to file it, or if you want to wait till you have everything, however you want to do it.
Yeah, I mean,
All 2 weeks then.
if I file
If you
tomorrow, I
filed
have
it-
to refile when I get the new, or just amend with?
No,
the-
no, so if he files for the next meeting for the RDA and get your information into me, so you should have your new plan in 2 weeks, because I don't think putting that other information on there, if they have the whole survey done, should be that difficult.
Okay.
So
And if he does, he can always.
he can always continue it.
All right, motion to continue? So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
Okay, thank you.
COC request 242-1604, request to continue
Oh,
to,
we have one more violation update.
oh, I'm sorry, 79 Boxer Street. I didn't see it, that's why
So at the last meeting, we discussed restoration for this parcel. We went out, the patio and drainage have been removed. There's the photo. And the only thing remaining is when the drainage work was done, there were some soils deposited in the wetland. Those are now fairly inundated and difficult to remove. So I don't know how much time additional you'd want, but I would recommend giving him some more time to get the soil out of the wetland.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it done before everything freezes and, it turns into a mess, but we're slowly working.
I have no problem giving extension.
No objection.
And, I mean, the grass was already starting to grow when we were
Yeah.
there. I'm sure
I have
this,
a picture now.
this weather
Yeah.
is probably even better for it. So
How much time do you want?
end of November, you think? Or,
Yeah, I think that's fair.
so last meeting in November, we'll check in again?
Okay.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Bill said.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry you had to wait so.
right, 242-1604 COC request to continue till October 24th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that's unanimous. Next one is extension request 242-1664, 240 Charles Street, which is the pumping station.
I recommend a one-year continuance. I think all that's left to do is paving of the driveway.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that's unanimous. Hopefully they'll put more pumps in, so we don't pump into the river.
We'll see. We'll see.
I boated in the Merrimack River for 31 years and was actually starting to clean out. Now it's worse than ever.
I'm not going to go on the record on this one.
Just floatables.
Huh?
Just
What are we voting
floatables.
on?
We're not voting. We
Floatables,
voted to,
needles.
No, I'm saying floatables, not
we
votables.
voted to authorize the
Yeah, we
extension.
have to authorize the extension.
There's nothing else being discussed.
Okay.
Nothing to see here.
But we'll get yelled at.
So discharges.
Nothing to be seen.
Next one is 242-1631, 294 Chestnut Street.
So when we went out for the original certificate of compliance on this one, there was an area that was not vegetated, that was supposed to be vegetated, it was just mulch. After speaking with the owner and reviewing it with their consultant who's in the audience, we determined that they should try different plantings, what they had planted in there. Only one of the plants remained when we went back out. So they called Garden in the Woods, got a whole bunch of new natives, 25 of them to be exact, and planted them. I think it looks a little sparse because some of the plantings, I would guess, have already lost some of their leaves, it looked like. But I think they put more plants back in there than were ever proposed the first time. And I don't have any doubt. And if anything, out there, jewelweed will take over and fill in anything that doesn't otherwise grow. So I don't know if anybody wants to wait another season on the plants, but otherwise I would recommend, I mean, there was much more planting done on the property, and that's all fine. So I would recommend a full and final COC.
I'm not the expert.
I'll move it.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, and that's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more stories, Greg? Bring something next time.
Remain silent, Greg. Remain silent.
We have,
Have a good night.
Good night.
Thanks, buddy.
we have the calendar, which is gonna take diddle to do, but there's Montero Way, just to sign a paper, right?
Yeah, we sent the one to the house, and turns out the owners live abroad, and the one that got sent to the house has gone missing, so we're just gonna sign a brand new one. But you've already voted it, we're just gonna sign again.
All right, and the
So,
other one is
The calendar, we can fit 4 meetings in at the end of the year. The holiday is on the 4th November, so we can meet 1st and 3rd November. Also gets me out of some nice Ipswich meetings. And in December, we could also meet 1st and 3rd, Christmas is in the 4th week, or we could just meet our 2nd meeting and skip the 4th.
Works for me.
Which is what we've done for the past couple Decembers.
Yeah, I recommend one meeting in December.
I agree. One
As
meeting
long
in
as it's,
December.
as long as it's a short agenda.
Well, that's
We'll make it
a,
short. We have the
that's a trick,
capability.
that's a trick that only the administrator can guarantee.
Short agenda.
We have the
that, Jamie?
we have the capability.
It sounds like we agree with you for one meeting in December, and it sounds like we're issuing a mandate that it not be a very big meeting.
Right, December 2019. We'll be planning well ahead.
You have
So-
plenty of opportunity now to fix whatever problem.
Okay, so it would be a December 11th meeting instead of the 4th and the
Okay,
18th.
December 11th it is?
That's kind of early for the Christmas party, though.
That's okay.
That's okay.
No, it's perfect,
No,
Joe.
it isn't.
Joe, it's
It'll work,
perfect.
it'll work out fine.
You can never be too early for a
I may
Christmas
never be on
party.
the commission by then.
You'll go to the party anyway, though, right?
Don't be talking silly.
You've been threatening us with a good time
I'm
for a long time.
just trying to think of my appointment cycle.
Check the
Is that
calendar.
before or after my retirement date?
All right,
See,
Okay,
This is conversation we ought not to have here.
on air, right, I know. I'll get lots of questions tomorrow.
Right.
So is there a motion, I guess, to approve
So.
with the
so
11th,
just-
right?
I'd be happy to offer a motion. So I'm looking at 2 meetings in November and 1 meeting December 11th only, and everything else remains as.
As
drafted.
is, yep.
So moved.
Second.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
All right.